Check 1 2 Soho Radio. B-side sessions. We got Strut 25 years celebration in the house. I want to say hello to my guest Quinton.
Hi Kobayashi. Thanks for having us in.
Oh, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, we're gonna. I don't know if we're gonna manage to cross everything because it's 25 years and it's a long time and it's feel like in so many ways you have so much more to bring. I think. But I ask you to send a couple of tunes, but I want to start by ask the most obvious question. How are you? You feeling good?
I feel all right. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, no, it's always busy with the label, but in a good place with it at the moment, and feeling good about music despite all the negativity in the world at the moment. I think.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I had so many questions when everything came along, but I'm going to start actually with what we're listening at the moment. This is Charles. Do you see that? I can't see that.
Charles Ireland.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So, 1999, that was the beginning of your journey?
Yeah, it was. It was an interesting time. I mean, I think, the music was so different then, and it was, I think we hit it at the time with Strut where it was like compilations were kind of coming into their own a little bit, if you like. I think there'd been a whole couple of decades where compilations had sort of built up through sort of street sounds and master cuts and Totally Wired, those kind of series, and DJ mix compilations had started with Journeys by DJ. And
was that like Back to Mine style?
Well, it was a bit earlier than that, and it was I think when we started, I think people were very much interested in compilations that were sort of attached with some of the stories as well behind the history of clubland, dance music, sound system culture.
Which I'm very curious about, because so it started more as like a compilation label, like that was your first releases?
Yeah, it was. I think we were very much trying to document different areas of dance music history. I think at the time there was a real obsession with New York and clubland. Around London, there was a lot of interest in the roots of New York clubland and the old disco clubs. You kept hearing about Paradise Garage and Better Days and all these great clubs, and we didn't really know much about them at the time. It was kind of pre-internet before it all really got going, and it was just a good time to be able to tell those stories and actually get deep into that history. So that was a sort of big start to the label.
So you think you had that second of like, okay, we're gonna start a record label? I'm very curious when that moment actually happens. Like, okay, we're gonna release our first compilation. We are DJs. Like, tell us a bit the background before it all started, because I think there's always a journey, a little bit.
I mean, it was quite a safe bet when I started Strut. I had a label. I started a label at another reissue company called Harmless before that, which was just at the time when labels like BBE were starting and Soul Jazz was still going, and Honest John's. There was already a good pool of labels out there doing really great compilations in our scene, if you like. But it's Harmless. Really, we did some remix compilations. We did a sort of remix collection for Masters at Work and Roger Sanchez and Merck, different albums, and then we had this series called Pulp Fusion, which was a shameless follow-up to Pulp Fiction, and it was all very blaxploitation-y music on there. So, I think compilations back then were much more simple and themed, if you like, but it was a little bit more naive maybe than they are now. But it was, that was a time when it was really exploding and he was selling a lot of records. So, yeah.
Was that a period of time you pressed a lot of CDs as well, or just vinyl?
Yeah.
Like, I think, end of the 90s, people were still buying CDs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, for vinyl and CDs, it was just, the numbers are unrecognisable for what you do now. I mean, it's like for any record label doing it now, it was eye-watching. At a zero, it was a good time. So yeah. So, but you started like as a DJ, as a collector, or I think I'd sort of been in the middle of sort of the middle of it really. I was never that much of a sort of full-on collector that I just spent my every living minute collecting records. But I did collect records and had a lot of contacts with DJs, but I was also interested in the stories and the sort of whole marketing behind it. So it was a bit of a mix where, you love the music, but it was about, we've always been very collaborative with Strut. We've always tried to work with other people that have got, deeper knowledge than I have in certain areas. So, it's it was always from the start with Strut, it was always a real joy. I think for the first 5 years we had many amazing projects. We had a great start to the label, and got to work with so many incredible people, and it's like, it was a good time to do it as well, because sadly we've lost a lot of them now, and it's, it was good to document that stuff when we did. So
yeah, I have that, always that thinking when people start a label, it's, I mean, as you say, it was your second label, so you already had the background, you didn't have that first moment of what do I do with distribution and all that kind of thing. That was already laid down.
Right.
So let's go a bit back. How that starts, like, the struggle perhaps of starting a label. I mean, you're doing it today for probably more than 25 years because you've been at another label. So I think, giving like word of advice to the youngsters outside, like trying to start a label, trying to build up something. How is that, like the first initial? I think like also in the 90s, like having independent label, it's not as common.
Yeah,
I
maybe
mean,
not. I think you could, first of all, you could sell a lot more records than, as we were saying. So I think it was, if you had the right idea behind a label, you could really make it work. And you just, I was looking for backers that would believe in me, and was very lucky through friends to find some initial backers for the label. So,
brilliant! Some sponsors, like, they'd be able to support the cause.
Yeah. And it wasn't a lot of money, but I think because we'd had that experience with the label before, I knew what would sell and, how to make the compilations work. So, we started very risk-free. We kind of copied ideas that we'd done at the previous label, and then sort of gradually stretched it out from there, and found our feet, if you like. But yeah, I mean, many, just I look at the way I was running the business back then, and the people that were working with me at the label will all be chuckling now, sort of saying, it was great, it was very exhilarating, and we had a great time. But honestly, I was so naive in the way I was running it. Kobayashi,
but it's like you just really want to do it. You do it with passion. I think that's the most important thing. Like, no, I mean, we make mistakes along the way, but
yeah,
the best way to learn.
It's a balance between making decisions and making mistakes, and I think it was a very fine line in my case, I think.
What does Strut actually means?
So Strut, I mean, this was one where there's a nice little story behind this, actually, because I was trying to find a name for the label, and I was trying to find something that was, a bit 1970s, that had a bit of attitude to it. And Strut's, it's obviously a funky walk. You could get a lot of records in the 70s that had Strut in the title, and it was just kind of a confident
so it's
swagger.
like that confidence.
Yeah, you're just like walking down the road feeling good, So it was that was the idea behind it. But very early on, we'd set up the limited company as Wah Wah Limited. So and just at the time when Wah Wah 45s were setting up their label. So I was talking to Tom Savini and realised that he got the same name, and we were like, oh no! So very last minute, I had to change it to Strut.
Yeah, really?
So poor old Dom remembers getting statements from the publishing people for our records.
On your records.
Yeah. So it's,
that's funny.
So yeah, it was very, very nearly Wah Wah, but he, that's how it's worked out. And obviously he's got a lovely 25 years this year as well. So
it's quite amazing. Like, I mean, I think there's so many labels grew from London. Like, it was based here, no? Like,
yeah, it was. Yeah,
and such a long process of running a record label, and I always think that if you want to measure success, you will measure it with a long period of time. You can't be like, everything is booming now, that's it, we're successful. Let's see how you can maintain that for 25 years. There's always up and downs, I would say. But it's a hard work, dedication, passion to music. I guess it all starts from there, no?
Yeah, it does. And I think, I think what's changed over time as well is you used to have like these moments in club culture where you could feel there was a sort of wave of interest, because there were more scenes back in the 90s and early 2000s. You might have interest in New York, or you might have, books were coming out, and there were a lot more magazines. There was music, there was Jockey Slut, there was Sleaze Nation. There was a lot more magazines out. You had Bill Brewster and Frank Broughton doing their Last Night a DJ Saved My Life book. So there were all these things happening, and you were kind of trying to respond to that with the label, with projects and things that were, felt relevant for the time. Whereas now I think it's so much more open. It's so fragmented in the way it works that it doesn't work so much like that. I think it's just really labels that have got a unique take on the way they approach music, and it's that there's and that's a great thing in its own right. It doesn't have to be around scenes. It can just be something that's really unique. So all the labels like yourself, Batov is a great example. Just come with something very unique with it, and it's great.
Yeah, I find it in a way like trying to bring different flavors. You create of a style, but as an individual, as a DJ and as a selector, I like music. I couldn't listen to one style of music or to one genre of music. I said that before on the show, that this dude that I know, that he kind of quoted like, this for me it's two style of genre of music. There's good music. There's music that I like and music that I like less. That's the way he defined it. And I always felt very connected to that style, like, because I can't say like, even when I go to DJs these days, I don't necessarily know what they're going to spin unless it's a specific style of party, which, I'm going to do that. I want to play something else from the amazing list that you sent me. I got the Isley Brothers. I won't be able to do everything, but any recommendation from the 1999, still like in the beginning of the time that you think we should spin?
Just trying to think what you had on the list there. I think, the next, if you have the KPM record, that was a nice one. That was a nice project.
The KPM record.
Yeah, so the Keith Mansfield track that I think you have on the list
there. Got it. I think there you go. Is that it? I think he finds it. That's it. That's Keith Mansfield.
Yes.
Crash Across.
Yeah, that's right.
Crash Across. Music for Dance Floors, the KPM Green Label Sessions. That's already like 20,000.
Yeah, that was about 2000. And that was, the whole phenomenon of library music, which is just such an interesting world. I think it's, music that was essentially recorded for quick clearance by, advertising agencies at the time, people who needed a quick bit of music where they didn't want to have to go through the whole clearance process.
So hold on a second. So that a recording that was for that period, or it's like an old recording and you digged it out and you released it?
So it's an old recording.
Okay.
And these guys, like composers like Keith Mansfield and Alan Hawkshaw and a lot of the guys around in the 60s and 70s were commissioned to make music to a certain theme. So it would be like drama or, relaxation or
It was
action.
for the BBC, no? Like,
Well, it was all...
it was library music.
Yeah. So library music. So there were different libraries that sprung up in the 70s and specialised in this, off-the-shelf music where you could just
Take it.
pay a certain fee and use it. Yeah, and it was very easy clearance. So it's but these guys were, commissioned and they worked hard. They were making like 5 or 6 pieces a day sometimes, and
Probably here in Denmark Street.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Timpanare.
Exactly. Yeah, that was.
I used to have a recording studio there.
Did you?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was a dream come true. It's unbelievable, but that's another story.
Could you feel the history in there?
I did. Every time I was there, I was like, I can't believe I'm in Timpanare. Like, you can't ignore it. But yeah, that's amazing. I mean, so how does that work? Like with there's a certain field in the label business that I'm very unfamiliar with, such as reissues, license music from different labels and things like that. Like, sometimes you work, if you do it with the publishing, with other publishing, it's something I'm very curious about. Perhaps you can tell me a bit about this, like, because if you made that compilation called, where it is, the KPM, that was the name of the, hold on, that was like those green.
Yeah, it was the green sleeves, just
green sleeves,
green.
And it said KPM in the corner.
Yeah.
I got some of them home. I've been doing my digging.
That's right, and it was they were basically a sort of separate. They were affiliated to EMI, but they were a separate entity essentially. So we could go straight to them and license the music, and they had everything, in their archive. So it was myself and Adrian Gibson, who at the time was booking the Jazz Cafe. Did a lot of work in the archives there just to sort of pull all that out, and it sort of followed. Johnny Trunk had done some great work on promoting library music before that with Trunk Records, another great label that's been going for many years now. So it was just a good time. Again, it was one of those things where people were really interested in like original breaks and samples, and it was just a good time to release that music. There's so many great riffs and breaks that came out of that music, and it just had a whole new audience really through hip hop culture and people that just liked original breaks and beats. So yeah, man, I
assume it's the same process as signing a new act. You just sub-license the master.
Yeah, I mean it's depends how you set your deals up, but on the reissues it's like it's a license deal. You pay an advance and a royalty, and if you all agree the money, then it's
everybody's happy.
Yeah,
well, it's a good thing about this because it's kind of reliving the music, because I think at the time when they made it, for them, they were like, I get a flat fee, I make music, that's my job,
That's right.
I forgot his name now. Anyway, I jumped from one thing to another. But back in the day, even an engineer, when he came to the studio, was wearing a suit because that's the job, like you come for a job back in the 60s.
That's right, serious.
Yeah.
It was, but those guys are. It's just great their story. When you talk to, sadly we've lost Alan Hawkshaw now, but he, he made a lot of great TV themes that you'd hear on sports programs during the 1970s. But his most lucrative piece was he got called up from Channel 4 to do the countdown theme, which is that little 30-second thing going around the clock. And he'd forgotten to compose it. He'd been asked to do it, and he was in the middle of something else. And I think he just had like literally an hour, and he was sitting in the bathroom just working something out, and had that little thing. And that's he said that made him more money than anything else. It's just because it's been used all these years.
You never know, man. That's the business. You never know. It's like yeah. Who would have thought?
Exactly.
Who would have thought? Well, that's amazing. I mean, it feels like, the first few years there was a very strong emphasis of compilations.
It was just compilations. Yeah, we were just we were just kind of buzzing with ideas because, as I say, the compilation market was really opening out, and it was something where we just had these ideas that they all worked out. So we did a great retrospective on the Paradise Garage, which was a whole New York trip dealing with the guys from West End Records and the original DJs from the club, and Then we did a whole thing on the Wild Bunch, which was Massive Attack's original DJ crew in Bristol. And, you know, it's just we're really determined to make these projects happen. And I think at the time you got that hunger of youth, and you just
go for it.
You just go for it, yeah. And it was like you know, you sort of think about the problems as you go. Yeah, that's it. You just dive in, and it's, you know, and it's a lot of it, I think, is about timing as well. Back in that time, I think you could, you know, licensing was easier, and you know, you could make these things happen. I think, you know, some of these ideas would be impossible now because, you know.
How come? What do you think is the difference? I mean, the one thing that popped in my mind is the fact that there was there wasn't a streaming platform.
Yeah.
So unless you really dig this music, most likely you never heard of it. You know, today if you release a compilation and none of the tracks is a new release or a new you know, like something that's already exists, there is a bit of a less, I don't know, love for it in a way. Maybe I'm exaggerating the truth of it, but the fact is, like, yeah, you can find the original much faster. You put the name of the artist, you go to Discord, puff, you found it. Then you were like, I've been digging in dust, literally, you know, getting scabbards from old records. Everything smells like old, and I found these breaks, and this, it's so amazing, you know, because when you do, it's that size of satisfaction, and you put it together and you release it, and people go like, wow, like how I didn't hear that. But how do you see, like, the difference when you say it's different these days? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think you're completely right. It's just, as I say, it's so fragmented, and everything is, you know, a lot of things are available now, and it's people's attention span is much shorter, and, you know, as you say, it's you're just flitting from one piece of music to another, and, you know, sampling a bit of everything, and it's in some ways that's great that everything's available. You know, I think it's one thing I was going to say is about African music, for instance. You know, I mean, African music now, you just digest a lot of that on Spotify, and it's just part of the tapestry of music that you've got there. Whereas, you know, obviously for a long time in the 80s, you had what they called the world music scene, which is I always hate that term, but it's you know, that was kind of a sort of sidearm of music, and those guys releasing that music were really trying to get it sold in the stores. So it's like, you know, things have changed so much in terms of people's openness. You know, you look at Afrobeats and Amapiano, and how much of that music is just everywhere now, and it's like part of, you know, the music everyone listens to, and that's a fantastic thing. You know, it's
I think that's amazing. You know, it's you get to a place that it's not mainstream, but more mainstream crowd listen to it, if that's the right way to say it. You know, like
and just sitting in Pret a Manger listening to Ebo Taylor or something, you know.
Exactly.
It's just crazy. I mean, it's like, actually, I think I heard a fella track in Tesco's the other day, and I just thought, I cannot believe this. It's like, you know,
that's a big step. That's a big step for society.
Yeah, I mean, whether you think that's a good thing or not, it's like, you know, the music's kind of ubiquitous. It's there, and it's, you know, it's great that it's not just a specialist thing for DJs and collectors anymore. It's there for everyone, and that's good.
But I think, you know, in general, if you're a DJ and this part of your passion is to share music with people that they don't know, you know, things that they don't know. So if you manage to do it with a compilation, you're actually doing your job as a DJ, selector, collector. You know, you put it all together and you release it to the world, and that's it. Now, once you put the right PR and everything behind it, hopefully it's reached the right people. But, you know, I'm looking at the list and I'm seeing Yoko Ono, and I couldn't ignore the fact that there is a Yoko Ono Walking on a Thin Ice, 1989, a re-edit from a disco, not disco compilation. You want to tell us something about this? Maybe we play it first, and then we try. Yoko Ono. Walking on a thin ice. I'm always shocked when I Yoko Ono. You know, I heard this great kind of comparison slash joke from Jerry Seinfeld that he was talking about, like people that never leave the apartment in New York. And he was like giving Yoko Ono as the example. It's like, you know, her husband got shot outside of the flat, of the house, but they're not going to move.
he was carrying the tape of that record back from the studio when he was shot. So
no way.
Yeah.
See how we link it in.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's like mind blowing.
Yes.
So that was a part of a compilation, I assume.
Yeah. So that was, you know, at the time, I think that the skill of the DJ and collector, you know, that was really when it was at the forefront, I think, and that was Dave Lee and Sean P who put that together, and it was. It's just one of those things where, you know, that was I was saying about the interest in New York music back then. You know, people were kind of like this idea of the mix of sort of post-punk and disco and that melting pot that was in New York at the time in the late 70s, early 80s. And they just captured it really, really well on that compilation. It was a mix of, you know, Arthur Russell, you know, Ian Dury, Compass Point track, and then you'd have Yoko Ono. There was just a really good selection of tracks on that. It was a very, very strong compilation, and it just hit a moment when everyone was very interested in that music. And the title was also genius. You know, I mean, Disco Not Disco kind of got used as
of course, make you want to listen to it like straight away.
Right. And it, you know, got used as a kind of genre in its own right. You know, people would say, oh, you know, I want to buy a disco. You know, record dealers would have a Disco Not Disco section of 12 inches they were selling.
No way.
And it just became a term that everyone used, and it really worked very well.
That must be a good feeling, no? Like when you feel like you're releasing a compilation and you're creating a trend.
I mean, it's
in
great,
a way,
yeah, but
you know, like
it's also about you know, the pleasure of sort of working with someone else that's got that vision, if you like. I think as a label, I've always tried to sort of take a bit of a back seat with it and just have the label as a base for these projects and collaborations. So I think working with Dave and Sean was brilliant at the time, and they were both, you know, huge figures in disco and massively respected. So you leave the terrain open to them and whatever they wanted to do, and it was great. Yeah,
that's amazing. I mean, it feels to me so many times that like UK are searching what's happening in New York, and then the Americans are very curious of what's happening here. You know, and it's like time is changing when there's a peak of the music from a different scene, or how can I explain it? Like, you know, where there's the strongest push for certain genre or scene, you know, like I don't know, I would say like today the UK jazz is very strong, and you feel it everywhere, like across Europe and things like that. But we got such a long list, and we will continue to Sahara All-Star Band Joes. Enjoy yourself. I think you said this Nigeria 70.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, for me, it's massive as a fan, you know. How was that process? Like, how that came across?
That one was, again, I think there was a huge interest in music from Africa at the time. I think there was a whole movement in Clubland. After Fela had passed away in the late 90s, there was, you know, DJs were starting to think, okay, what was around at the time of Fela? You know, what other music was there? And it was always a weird one because we had a big rare groove scene in London in the late 80s, and a lot of the original African records hadn't really been picked up beyond, you know, Fela tracks, Sol Makossa maybe. There weren't a lot of records being played from that time, and I met a collector called Duncan Brooker who had been over in Africa a lot with Reuters as a sound man. And he'd been collecting a lot of records from across Africa, and I met him and started listening to some of the records he had, and it was just mind-blowing music, you know, from Nigeria and beyond. So we sort of hatched a compilation of original Nigerian music, which became Nigeria 70. He'd already released a compilation called Afro Rock, which really was the first, you know, compilation of its kind. Rare Grooves, which, you know, were brilliant for DJs and dance floors. And it kind of, you know, all the great work that the guys that had promoted world music in the 80s, if you like, it was a sort of progression from that, but much more orientated towards the dance floors and what DJs would play. So, you know, all of these great records from the 1970s, you know, we listened to a lot and tried to sort of get a balanced compilation together with Nigeria 70, where it wasn't just about funk and, you know, James Brown influenced stuff. It was going into juju. It was going into a bit of, you know, the track you'll hear in a minute from northern Nigeria, you know, more of the Hausa side. So we tried to sort of get a good picture of the whole of Nigeria at the time in the 70s, and went out there and had some great interviews with a lot of the original musicians. You know,
did you go there, like doing all the proper digging as well, like the chatting with the musician, the artist, and things like that?
Yeah.
How did they get it? Like, you know, this white guy coming here, want to release our music in a way, like, you know, I think there's a moment that you start to realize somebody else can listen to it on the other side of the ocean. You know, like in a good way, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I wonder how, you know, they were excited.
They were, yeah. I think that, you know, they were very happy to tell their stories, and
Nice.
you know, I think it was about, you know, again, not sort of over egging the record label, going over there and you know, laying out the red carpet because you were releasing this music. It was very much about trying to tell their stories, and
Nice.
And it's also that the taste in the West, you know, has always been very different to what has worked musically in Africa. So a lot of the funkier records back then just weren't selling many copies, whereas, you know, Juju and Fuji and High Life was massive, obviously, in Nigeria. So a lot of those funkier records just got lost over time.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's very much, you're trying to sort of give a balanced view of Nigerian music, but you're also trying to appeal to the Western market because, you know, DJs will play certain tracks. So it's a difficult one. You're trying to represent Nigeria in the right way, but not just put a Western slant on it. So it was, we tried to get a balance on that, I think.
I think it is great. I mean, for me, when I heard those things for the first time, I was like, this is so good. How did I miss it? Like, you know, all those years. Like, and I find it very ear opening. You know, like you listen to something and that feels different than anything else that you hear, and you go like, oh, that's really interesting. You know, but it's a process that if you like music, you go into everything. When you start when you're younger, and then you just want to try more things. Like if you like food, you want to try different flavors, different things. It's the same thing with music, I guess. So that was a big. Would you consider like a big step for Strut Records? Like,
yeah, it was. I mean, all of the projects we were doing in the early years were really just sort of taking us up a different level each time. It was going very quickly. You know, we were releasing projects every couple of months, and they were 2-3 months, and they were, you know, it was just at a time when you were selling really nice amounts of records. But I think with Nigeria 70, it was, you know, still feel very proud of that project. It was a lovely project to be involved in. There's a lot of people involved in it. You know, there was, you know, Duncan was involved, and John Armstrong and Coyote Samuel over in Nigeria. Laulu Akins from Blow was there, and there was a whole team that really was very determined to do a great job on putting that together. And but you know, it was there were other labels that were doing great African compilations at the time, so it was like, it wasn't just us doing it. I think for us it was a big stepping stone, but there was like Comet Records in France and a label called Superclass that was starting to, you know, release original African grooves. So it was like it was part of a whole movement towards finding out more about that music, I think.
yeah, I think like, you know, coming from that previous compilation that you did to that is a bit of a change, but then at the same time it's just an extending arm of your love for music, you know? So let's play a tune from that.
belly to put on. Drink if you get belly to take on. Enjoy yourself as you think you sabi. Enjoy yourself as you think you sabi. Nobody knows the day him Enjoy yourself as you think you sabi. Enjoy yourself as you think you sabi. Enjoy yourself, make you forget, say you go die. Me, I go jump, I go enjoy myself. Enjoy yourself, make you forget, say you go die. Me, I go jump, I go enjoy myself. You get money, you no enjoy, now you sabi. Me, I go jump, I enjoy myself. You get money, you no enjoy, somebody go jump. I must rock. Enjoy yourself. You don't know the day you go quench. The people we leave yesterday we no enjoy. They don't quench. Somebody they chop their money for them now. You get money, you no enjoy. Now you sabi. Yes. I no get money for bank. My belly and my bank. I no hide money for bank. My belly and my bank. How they chop, how they drink, how they enjoy myself.
So in case you are wondering, we are still on Soho Radio B-side session. Strut 25 years. Quinton Scott is in the house. And the list is so long and we got so many amazing artists on that list, which I want to talk about. But before that, I wanted to point out something that I noticed. Maybe it's just in that list that I have, but I felt like 2001, 2002, 2003, they weren't as much, or you just picked a bit less? Because I see this stronger emphasis from 2008, 2009. Something like a big jump from 2003 to 2008.
Yes.
What happened there? You took a long break in Thailand, forgot to come back.
Yeah, we didn't have much choice in the matter, really. I think, unfortunately, we had to close down in 2003. We had a...
Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, so we had, partly because of the way I'd run the label and also partly because our distributor went under at the time, we got into a difficult situation in 2003. And so the label was dormant between those times for about 5 years. And in that time, I worked at a venue in East London and was booking Grime Act. Essentially, we had Arts Council funding to support talent in East London, and the music that was really coming through at that time was sort of the early grime years. So I worked there and was involved in putting on events in Stratford with all the original grime guys. Guys like so Wiley in his early days, and guys like Crazy Titch.
You've been around, man. Everybody's like, it's unbelievable. Your history of the underground scene of London, man. Like, go on, speak, hit me.
Well, I was very much out of my depth there. I was just like learning as I was going along because there was just so much happening in that scene, and the events were crazy. I mean, it was a very sort of squeaky clean arts centre, and each time you have an event, it was you had to load up the security, and had some interesting incidents there. But the energy at that time with that music, when grime was coming through, it's just like incredible. You get these these spontaneous battles in the foyer where you get a few rappers all sort of rapping against each other, and you just think this is just amazing. It's like, this is just so so incredible, the way they just feed off each other, and the energy that was there for it. And it was it was a really great time actually for that music, before the usual cycle happens where a record label gets hold of it, and or a scene suddenly becomes a bit more commercial. It just had this rawness.
Yeah, it
to
had
it.
the raw. Yeah, in a way, it's like hip hop, no? Like
Yeah, and it's.
But you've been in that magic moment, like like I'm so jealous.
Well, it was just there was real coincidence, but I only saw pockets of it. It was but it was it was fascinating. I think if you're interested in music, and for all the other reasons that we were doing Strut, it was just it was a really interesting time. So it wasn't.
But hold on, so in 2003, you actually closed the business down for like 5 years.
Yeah, we had to close it. So eventually, what happened was one guy that used to work at one of our distributors was working at K7 in Berlin, which is an independent German label, and suggested that we resurrect it. So we came through. They essentially bought up the label, and they've had it ever since, and been working with K7, which has been a second life for the label essentially.
Amazing. I mean, K7 are brilliant.
Yeah,
I like those guys.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, they're really. It was a great situation. I mean, you get the bigger company behind you, and you're still given creative freedom. So it was a perfect situation, really. And
It's a bit less stress.
Yeah, it was a lot less stress, I have to say. Yeah, it was. Sort of tinged with sadness that it got to that first time round, that you could still run it as an independent entity. But I think in this day and age, it's amazing to be able to work with them. They're a good company and really supportive all the time, and very lucky to
what
still
do you think? Like if you had to give yourself an advice about like what thing went wrong, I wouldn't say went wrong. I think like everything had to happen. I'm kind of this kind of guy, but looking back, saying like because running a label, I think what people sometimes do not understand is these additional skills that you gotta have as an individual. You gotta see the whole year ahead of you. Like I'm sure that you already have schedule until October, if not December, sorted for the label, and it's not that easy, in a way, because you keep getting music and people suggesting stuff. But yeah, if you had to go back, like where you think. I wouldn't say who you blame. Don't blame an individual. But, as a concept, like, what do you think went wrong?
Yeah.
In a way.
I mean, I look in the mirror and blame him every day, to be honest. But it's, I think...
I would be the same, probably.
I think, I mean, it's an obvious thing, but I would have probably set the business up with an accountant in the first place and had a money man telling me, don't do this, don't do that, because, all those stupid decisions you make over time where you're ruled by your heart. I think... I remember Paradise Garage album that we did. We decided let's do glow in the dark ink on that one. It would be really nice, and that was like 20 grand or something for it. And it was just these silly commercial decisions that you were making that you thought would make a difference, and would have made the difference if you hadn't done it.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I think you've got to be an all-rounder. You've got to have the creative vision and sort of know what projects are going to sell and have a handle on distribution and marketing. But then you've got to be good on the money as well, and just be able to manage the cash flow. And that's why I admire these labels that have been around for so long. The True Thoughts of the World and First Word, who are sort of celebrating anniversaries this year. They had that right from the start.
Well, I think everything said and done. At the end of the day, you're back on your feet. The label is running, and you keep releasing this amazing stuff. So you have to go down in order to come up.
Yeah, no, sure, but it's just I think you're just realistic about it. I don't regret anything. And, we had amazing years in the early years, and it's great now. So I still feel very lucky doing it.
I still see here something from 2002, which is the official adventures of Grandmaster Flash.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, that was an interesting one because again, documenting hip hop history. I think at the time people knew the great three: Afrika Bambaataa, Flash, Kool Herc.
Yeah.
But the deeper story hadn't been told then. Everyone knows that story now, and everyone knows every detail of it. It's all been well documented, but at the time it hadn't been. And I went to New York on one of the trips and found out that Flash was playing an after-work party just at sort of 6, 7 o'clock. And I went along, and it was the guys had come out of the city, still in their suits, and were dancing around to a very commercial set that Flash was playing. And I just thought, I have to say I thought it was tragic at the time. I just thought this is just terrible. You know, I mean, this guy's one of the
pioneers.
One of the absolute greats of hip hop, and he's you know, I can't believe he's playing this kind of set. So I got to know him a little bit, went to see him a few times, and just persuaded him to sort of go back to what he was doing at the block parties, and you know, going back to the original breaks, and you know, the essence of his work, if you like, when he was inventing, you know, turntablism and scratching, and you know, everything that he was doing. I mean, it was you know,
I'm so excited.
I mean, it was sorry, he didn't invent scratching at all. It was very much about beat matching. He was part of the process, but it was an important building block, obviously. So we got back to the original breaks and did this compilation, Official Adventures, and did a whole event with him at Electroworks in London, where he just played original breaks and tried to structure it like an old block party. He was talking away to the crowd. It was just like rammed in there.
Oh my God, that would have been so nice.
It was that was very, very special to do that. So to have actually sort of gone from that first time you met him to seeing that happen was, like, you know, great. And
was that in 2002?
Yeah. And
I was already here.
Yeah? Okay.
I came like 22 years ago. It's like I didn't know shit about those things. Like, I was just trying to figure out how to say hello without sounding so rude. You know. Well, I have to play a tune that Eddie
Drennan.
Eddie Drennan.
Yeah.
Okay, just a sample, just as they do.
Mm.
It's like I feel like I should never take the faders off the microphone because you keep feeding me with information that everybody gotta hear. You know, like you were saying that he was there in that party with the original crates with the crayon marks.
Yeah, we got him to bring all the original records out, so they were just some of them were battered, but they had, as you say, crayon marks, you know, as the DJs had on the labels, and it was all there from. It was just that artifact from the early '80s, the stuff he actually played.
Did he had that dude that gave him the records always?
Yeah,
you know?
No way. Yeah. So there's a guy feeding him records because times he was like mixing quickly, so it was like one in, one out, and you know, they had it down.
I would love to see that. I would have loved to see that. Shit. Okay. I'm enjoying this. I don't know how if you even realize how much, you know, because it's like so much information, so many amazing stuff. I mean, you had after that, Poor Man on the Great Brother compilation. No, Poor Man No Get Brother. Am I saying right?
Yeah, that was kind of an extension of the Nigeria 70 project. That was a great musician called Segun Buckner, who, you know, really underrated. I mean, he's just one of the greats of 1970s Nigerian music, really. And you know, had some great footage on YouTube of him with the Sweet Things, you know, doing an amazing gig, you know, where they just had this incredible energy. But you know, he used R&B and, you know, created his own fusion with it, and you know, some of it was quite politically heavy, you know, never quite to the extent of Fela, but it was very, very deep and soulful music, and it's to me that's still, you know, he's still one of my favorite artists from that time. I think he's amazing.
Because after that you had like Mr. K edits, and then it's so much here to look at, and it's really impressive. And I'm scrolling down a little bit towards like 2008, 2009, when you came back stronger than ever. And then you signed Jimmy Tenner and Tony Allen.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
So this was a series, we tried to do a series where we were pitching older legends with, interesting younger artists and producers and tried to sort of match people that would work really well together. So, the most successful out of that series was when Mulatu Astake first came back. He did a concert at Cargo for Karen P and broadcasting, and that sort of set him up again for a bit of a revival. He'd already had some, records out through Buddha Music and been featured on Jim Jarmusch's film, and that was a rejuvenation for him. With Tony Allen and Jimmy Tenner, we Jimmy had already been making some Afrobeat style records, and we just thought they'll go well together, and that would be an
But he
interesting
was not on Strut. Was he on Strut already?
Who, Jimmy Tenner?
Yeah.
No, he wasn't. He was releasing a lot on his own label. He had Soho Records, and I was trying to think. He was on. I think he was on Warp at one point, wasn't he? Yeah, I think in the early days. Yeah, he was
Wow.
very, very, very hip, and he's always been his own guy. He's already had his own style, and he's a brilliant musician, and he's just this great mix of sort of musicianship and humour. He always just brings in some funny stuff, and with Tony, they just hit it off. I mean, him and Tony just got on so well. They're both, quite quiet.
So if you come with this idea of putting them together, is that an initiative of the label? You go like, oh, there you go, like, take X amount of money, go to the studio, make a recording. Was that all original, new material? Was that like reinterpretation?
Yeah, it was. I think we our first project that we did in that series was the dearly departed Amp Fiddler with Sly and Robbie, and that was one we thought would really work, but we didn't know how it would work in the studio. So we said, okay, you've got 3 days to put this together, and that's just it's just so naive. I mean, it's like trying to get a good album together in 3 days. I mean, we put the poor guys were under a huge amount of pressure, and we were battling the budgets and trying to make it work. But by the time we got to Jimmy and Tony, they had they went over to an analog studio in Berlin, had a bit of time to work together and feel each other out, and it was just essentially they had some commercial tracks, and then one that you might hear here in a minute, which is more of a sort of freestyle thing called 3 Continents, which is right at the end of the album, which is just a really dense, heavy track where they they're just in the flow, if you like, and it's just a really wonderful natural collaboration. But they hit it off so well, and they performed together regularly after that, and became great friends. And that was, that's the whole point of it, isn't it? You just sort of
That's pretty amazing, man. Like, it's, think about what we gain as listeners, when you guys come with this idea, let's put these dudes together, and then there's an album merge, and it's brilliant, and you seems like you did it quite often with some other artists as well. Like
yeah, we tried to build it into a series, and it was it's just one of those. It's a bit of a lottery, It's you sort of want the chemistry to happen in the studio, and to be honest, on all of the albums, I think it did work to a certain point. But then when you're actually sort of just dealing with the sales and dealing with are you going to put more money into this series? It's just you're back into the commercial game. So even if you want to, you had these ideas of who could work with who in the studio. It eventually comes down to what the record sells. So it's a difficult one. It was always a fine balance. But
that must be an expensive. It feels to me like an expensive project. Getting the musicians, pay them, session, I mean, it's a whole different way. Like, it's a little bit like how they used to do it back in the days, when they used to pay the musician to record everything. But in that case, just create something together. And for you, it's a lottery. I would say, like, it's a casino, because you don't know what's going to come out. I mean, the theory, if you put 2 great minds together, it's going to work.
I mean, this is what I think that what you're saying about the skills you need within the label. I think it's you're thinking so many things when you're starting a project like that. It's like, are they nice people? Are they easy to work with? What are their egos like? Have they got management? What are they going to? What's the chemistry like between them? What's your hunch about that? And there's many unpredictable things. So I think it was a fairly safe bet, I think, between Tony and Jimmy. I just thought, they're both lovely people, and I know they're going to hit it off because they, musically very aligned. And
was the first time you worked with Tony?
I'm not sure. I think Jimmy had probably met him before. It's a really good question. I can't remember, to be honest.
By
But
yourself,
I think,
like for you?
yeah, I hadn't really. Tony I'd worked with a lot because when he was first coming back in the early 2000s, we released his original Africa 70 albums as part of our release schedule, and we got to know him through that. And there was a great, we got him over to do gigs, and there's this one that the original Strut stuff, as we'll remember well, we booked him at HQ's in Camden, and got there the day before which HQ's is like it's sort of one of the lofts at the back of the market, and it's there's the promoter there. I went to see him the day before because we'd booked the venue, and he sort of said, I've changed my mind, we're bringing a Greek DJ in, and sorry.
What?
And I was like, we've got Tony Allen coming over. What are you talking about? It's like, I had everything booked and, DJs and the whole thing. And so within a day, we, again, this was something you could probably do in the early 2000s. We found Fortis Studios in Shoreditch and said, look, can you help us out here? Can you put this on? So we sort of shipped all the backline down there. We put a minibus on the night to go from HQs down there. And eventually we managed to get everyone in for the gig and had a really good night. But it was just crazy. I remember that one.
Oh my God, man, this is insane. Okay, so you already knew like Tony and Jimmy, and you had to feel like it's gonna work out. Like, I'm gonna play a little bit of that because we're running for the first hour, running so fast, and there's like loads of questions. okay, as I said, as soon as I put the faders down, we keep on talking and you don't hear it. But, you know, we were just mentioning like how it's a great feeling when you release a record and it's been accepted and people like it and you send it to people and, you know, because there is that moment from, I don't know, for in that case, you know, your initiative that release, you know, with Jimmy and Tony. But, you know, sometimes you get like a demo, you know, of a band that recorded a record and you hear it for the first time and you go like, yeah, I like it, but it's not going to work. But eventually you go like, this is it, I want to release it. And from that moment until it's actually come out, it can take some time. But there's no greatest feeling when it actually comes out. People like it and go like, oh, this is really cool. You know, like I'm sure you had it before doing independent label market and people go like, oh man, I love your label. Yeah, it's a nice feeling, no?
Yeah, no, it is. I think it's the general reason why you're doing it, isn't it? I mean, you're sort of you want a bit of a legacy to you know, to follow all the work you've done for that music to be out there for people, and you know, you want to do good by the artists, and yeah, because essentially you know, it's their life, and it's you want to do good by them as a label, I think, and yeah, just you know, touch people.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about because I see like couple of collaboration of Mulata, or is just one collaboration and then the other one is featuring what is that?
Yeah, so the Mulatu Astat K, that was a really interesting journey. I mean, that's been, you know, the proudest thing I've been involved in. I think he came over, must have been around 2009, when he was brought over by Karen P, who's now you know, runs a very successful radio production company, and she had a night called Broadcasting at Cargo, and she put together Mulatu with the Heliocentrics for a gig there, and you know, I heard this was happening, and you just went along, and it was just mind blowing. You know, I mean, the Heliocentrics are such a great band anyway, but they, you know, deeply loved Mulatu's music, and hearing them perform together was just a great fit. So you know, I knew there was going to be a bit of a rush to sign a project, and Where did you do the recording? Where was it? Well, the Heliocentrics had a studio at the time in Homerton, which was just in a warehouse building, really. It was just very rudimentary, and they set all their kit up in there. It was very, you know, very rough and ready. But they got a great recording from it, and it was, you know, it was very... It was great is an understatement, man. Well, it was just incredible. Great. It was just great that they balanced it between the Heliocentric sound and Mulatu's sound. Yeah. I mean, it's like looking back now, you realise, I don't think I realised at the time how skillful that was, because Mulatu's music is so delicate, and, you know, the colours are so unique in it, and to actually sort of understand that music and really add your stamp to it without taking away, you know, all of the goodness of Mulatu's sound. It was brilliant what they did with that. I mean, that was a truly incredible collaboration, and you know, they toured with it, and it really set Mulatu off on the trajectory he's been ever since. And now he's kind of achieved his dream. I think he started composing Ethio jazz in the mid '60s, and, you know, had this whole time where it was known in Ethiopia, but then through through nowhere else. Yeah, that's right. And through Buddha music, and, as I say, the Jim Jarmusch film Broken Flowers, and then the Heliocentrics project, he gradually... I love Jim Jarmusch, which we can have a whole conversation about that as definitely. Well. Yeah. You know, I think he wrote a character into that film just purely as a sort of, as a vehicle for Mulatu's music, if you like. So wow. I think, yeah. So it was, you know, Mulatu was on the rise after that, and Ethio jazz became more and more known, and it's just amazing to see his gigs now. You know, I go and see him a lot, and very closely in touch with him, and he's, you know, you just see the reaction wherever he goes. I mean, anywhere in the world, he's played pretty much every continent, and it's just truly a global thing where he goes and everyone loves it. And it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's very unusual that in music where you've got that reach, and he's a very commercial music in a way, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's very, but at the same time, you cannot ignore that rhythm, you cannot ignore that melodies is just so unique, so amazing. Yeah. So do you remember that moment that you received the recordings, listening to it? Like, that's what I want to know. I want to see your face when you press play. Then we're like, okay, let me see what you did. Well, this is the privilege you have as a record label. I'm just sitting in the corner of the studio watching it all happen. So, yeah,
okay, so you were there.
yeah. So Mulatu's, he didn't feel completely at ease all the way through it. He was, it's the first time he'd recorded a new album with, in a long time, and recording with someone he hadn't really got to know well. I mean, it was just, there was a lot of sort of feeling out of the process, and the Heliocentrics guys were great. Malcolm and Jake were just making him feel comfortable. And
I met Jake for the first time last 2 Saturdays ago.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to say it.
I mean, that's just, those guys are amazing. They really are.
Yeah,
Just
they're incredible.
So, so much time for them and everything they've done over the years. But it's, with that, it was, the whole band were lovely and made him feel welcome. And they gradually got into it. There were technical problems in trying to mic up the vibes properly. I remember that. And it wasn't plain sailing. A lot of these things are, you just expect them to come together, but there's a lot of sort of searching out and trying ideas. And, he gradually felt more comfortable as he got through the sessions, and it was, turned out amazingly. So.
But you remember a moment going like, this is going to be big? I mean, I think, I don't want to say that every release we do will be like, yeah, this is going to be massive, because some things, it's a lottery, it's a casino. But I think there are magic moments that you, in the studio, if you're in a certain recording sessions and you go like, this is it. Like, there's something very, because that album is very special. Like, whatever you turn it around, what, it was 2009, you said? Pass the test of time, like, test of time, not taste.
Yeah. I mean, that's, that's the genius about the way they've always produced their music, through the analog desk. I mean, Malcolm was very, very savvy and getting a lot of kit from TV stations and different sources over the years to put together a really incredible analog studio. So he always had that mindset in the way he puts the recordings together, and it does always sound timeless. But I think in the sessions you kind of sense that it was very, very special what they were doing. But then when you get the mix, I mean, what Malcolm and Jake are so brilliant at is the mix as well. They'll add more to the production in the sort of final stages, and it's that magic dust that they are so good at, and it just gives it a feeling and a whole sort of unity to the project. And then we found an Ethiopian artist who created this letterboard, which is all based on the Amharic alphabet, which just worked really, really well as a cover. And when you actually feel all that coming together as well, it was
amazing.
It was a great thing. So yeah, it was a really special project. That I think it was
amazing.
Very, very happy to be involved in it.
Let's play that. Yeah, I will listen to the whole album if it was up to me, you know, like moving forward. But we gotta move forward because we literally just in 2009 and we got about 45 minutes, and I was like worried if we're not gonna have enough time. We'll be part one, maybe part two, you know, continue this. If we were on a podcast, we would just go like for 4 hours easily. But so I think, you know, moving forward, you got Ebo Taylor.
Yeah.
That's another interesting release that you guys had.
Yeah, I think Ebo, another absolute legend. You know, I think we're as labels, we've just been very lucky to be operating at the time we have been. Really, I mean, I think Ebo's story. There are other labels that were reviving his music. You know, Soundway, Analog Africa did a great job in reissuing some of those tracks, getting the spotlight back on him. And
so, how does it work? Like, everything that's been released is old stuff, and you know, suddenly one label is doing, then another label is doing, releasing the. Was that an album that you did with him, or was it another compilation?
Yes, we did a new studio album with him. So again, there were links with, you know, previous albums we'd done. So a great engineer called Jochen Stroh, who's in Berlin, who has a fantastic analog studio. You know, through him, there were other musicians there. There was the Afrobeat Academy band at the time in Berlin. A guy called Ben Abarbanel Wolf, he's a great horn player. And I'd heard that they were talking to Ebo and had gone to Ghana, or were going to go to Ghana to talk about recording something new. So again, you know, with Jochen's studio, you know it was going to be a fantastic analog recording, and they brought him over to Berlin and recorded the Love and Death album, which was partly covers and partly, you know, new compositions on there. And it was, you know, again, you're judging it as a record label, you know, great studio, great musicians, you know, you're going to get the right sound, people that love his music. And it just came together really well. Again, that album, you know, the studio albums he did for us, Love and Death and Up Here Choir Bridge, just still sound great. You know, they're
of course, Love and Death. It's like, you know what, it's those things that you just keep hearing everywhere. And yeah, I find it quite fascinating, the fact that, you know, I mean, you obviously had past releases before, and then bringing it to Europe in so many ways, I would say, you know, to take it outside of Africa, you know, like for a different crowd. And, you know, there's that, if you look back, people would categorize it as word music, and for people like yourself and me, you know, we don't like that because, you know, it's, for me, it's always like, what do you mean word music? You know, if it was an Arabic or African band, they're doing funk, why is it not funk? You know, like, and then, you know, you release it and it does really well. Like, I think you play all over Europe, it's everywhere, no?
Yeah, and he got back touring again, and it was really nice to have him, you know, back on the road. And, you know, I think people sort of realised, you know, Ebo was in a very unique spot. He was such a brilliant arranger, and in the way he composed his music, you know, I mean, it was a very, very big moment, you know, in Ghana's music in the 1970s. And, you know, it all came from, he'd come over, been in the UK, he'd studied with Fela. You know, these guys were really creating their own template, if you like. And, you know, he was using high life, he was using soul music, but the way it was all put together was just completely unique. And, you know, combined with his arranging and songwriting talent, you know, it's just this incredible catalogue of music. So to actually work with him on a new album was
so that was another initiative from you guys to like get to the studio, record a new album.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's as a label, you're kind of facilitating these things. So I think that the drive was really happening with I say the Afrobeat Academy guys that were just passionate about his music and really wanted to get him back out there touring and recording again. So you know, we sort of fed off that drive, if you like, and you know, we're lucky to be able to put the records out. But it's you know, to capture Ebo at that time, you know, he's you know, sadly he's you know, he's not so well now, but he's going to be back over for We Out Here Festival, I think, this year. He's going to be,
no way.
Yeah, he's back there.
That's exciting.
Which is fantastic. So he'll be here for that, and you know, he's now got a whole band with his family that put together around him, and it's great.
That's,
you know, so it's
super
just
exciting.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. So he's you know, the wonderful guy.
Are you going
Of course.
this year to the festival?
Yeah, I'll be there for that. You go?
Nice. I don't know. It always falls in August.
Right.
You know, around my birthday, and I kind of hibernating around my birthday. But yeah. Well, let's see. You know.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna have to play that as well. Yes. You know, there's something inside of me that goes like, you know, the interview is not finished, but I'm going to bring it up and say thank you. You know, thank you for doing the digging. Thank you for releasing this music. It's so many of those records open like a new channel for myself, you know, with music taste. And so I don't know, it's like somebody give you first time to try strawberry and cream, you know, like, you know, it's very sweet, which is different from the style of the music, but you know what I mean? Like it's something like, oh man, how I never had that before. And I see that for the heliocentric is repeating itself. Sorry, that's not the right way to describe it. They did a lot of collaborations with different artists that came out on Strut. My question that I had in mind, and did they release a full album just heliocentric with you guys?
No, so we've worked on quite a few collaborations with them, but they've also recorded for Now Again. They've done their sort of artist albums through Now Again, and did a great collaboration with Melvin Van Peebles for them as well. And you know, Ethan at Now Again's always had a very close relationship with Malcolm as well. So it's you know, they've
Ethan. I want him here one day.
Yes, you definitely need him here.
He's got you know, he's into the wine and the records and the whole story.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it'd be that's another, you know, more than 2-hour chat.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah, but so that's funny, no? Because you know, if they released everything there, and you guys initiative few collaborations. That's based on the success that you had with the previous album. It's like, oh, let's try get it with somebody else.
It's just that gift that they've got of really deeply understanding the artists they're working with, and then being able to record them in the right way. So it's you're trying to, you know, echo the artist's previous work, but not copy, not just make a sort of 70s retro exercise. You're trying to sort of update it. So, you know, they did that time and again with Orlando Julius, you know, the great
yeah,
Afro
I'm just looking
artist.
at that here.
I mean,
amazing.
He's, you know, a complete pioneer in Nigeria. You know, Super Afro Soul was a groundbreaking album in '66, and Orlando's a lovely man, fantastic saxophonist, and you know, they had many years touring with him and recorded a great album as well.
Wow.
Yeah, and then, you know, Malcolm's produced the Idris Ackamore and the Pyramids for us for many years now, over lots of different albums, and they did this collaboration with Lloyd Miller, which was a completely unique experience. I mean, Lloyd again has just one of those, you know, completely unique stories in music. He studied Oriental instruments and Middle Eastern instruments, and he created this music that he called Oriental jazz. Made a private press album in the 70s, which became a real collector's item. But he was living in Iran when he was younger as a jazz musician, and he actually managed to get a primetime TV show in Iran on Saturday nights. So you'd sort of tune in on Iranian TV, and there's Lloyd with all these musicians just playing jazz.
Wow.
I mean, it's incredible. So his story's amazing, and he's living in Salt Lake City now. He's Mormon, and he came over, and he was in the suit when he came into the studio, and was a real academic on music, and also didn't suffer fools, as the Heliocentrics guys will remember well. He had a very firm idea about what was good music and what wasn't, and what wasn't was anything.
He's always tricky, like. But what wasn't? Well,
the thing is, the Heliocentrics obviously, have their style, and he said, this just sounds like the Beatles.
No way! Oh God, that sounds harsh.
He was like really giving them a hard time. So we had this huge balancing act where we were trying to sort of direct the music, because we knew that his Oriental jazz album and the way we could direct the music in the right way for not in the right way, but in a way that would really appeal to that younger scene, if you like, was I suppose we were trying to sort of A&R it within the actual sessions itself, and Malcolm and Jake kept trying to tweak the direction here and there, and eventually the album that came out was really wonderful. But I think Lloyd was very much a traditionalist, if you like. He wanted it to be pure, based on jazz traditions, Middle Eastern traditions, and sort of keep it that. Anything apart from that was wrong and going in the wrong direction.
So was he happy in the end with the?
I mean, I think he compromised in the end. I think it was a very uneasy truce in the end. Quite honestly, it was like there's a lot of tension during those sessions, I remember. And
that's a tricky one, no? Because you come with such a good intention and try to be like, there can be something quite unique. But that's what you were mentioning earlier, to know that the egos of the people you're working with. I mean, the Heliocentric because you worked with them before. They're kind of easygoing, and they can provide, certain style of music that you guys were after. But in this case, this dude was just like a whole different idea. It's hard, man. It's hard.
But a lot of it's just about the personal relationship as well. The Malcolm and Jake again were so good at just building that relationship with the musicians. So that eventually, even if there were reservations, he liked them so much that he went with certain directions. And similarly as a label, you have to do that work in between the sessions. You take him out for dinner, have a chat with him, get to know him, and make him feel comfortable about everything. And it just that works wonders. It's not always about having this forcing through a vision, if you like. It's all very much about the personal relationships with everybody, and making sure that they're happy in the studio environment and around it. So
it's ever so hard, man, working with artists. People don't understand that. There's so many layers for it, like how you handle it, how you approach it, and I see. I know what you mean, and. Yeah, we're going to play that. We're going to play that recording because I'm even more retreat now. definitely need to get myself a copy of this one. Put it on my list.
Sure.
Okay, so I never felt like so much pressure with the time when we are live as well, and it's like, you know, we have to not sum it up, but we still got time, but we're jumping a couple of years ahead, and there's something that we wanted to talk about, which was some of the industrial sound that you had maybe 2013, 2012. You mentioned Nitzer Ed.
Nitzer Ed, yeah. I think a big part of the work we've done. I think we've brought in that sort of post-punk and industrial history as well to the label, which I personally love. I love that side of Clubland as well, and we've again worked with some fantastic compilers on that. We were lucky to be able to do a couple of albums of 12-inch versions from Factory Records. It's just
it's like reissues.
Yeah, so this is like really putting together all the 12-inch versions that happened across the label, and a guy called James Nice that looks after a lot of the factory archives was massively helpful in getting that together, which is lovely to have all of that on a couple of compilations. And then we've worked with Optimo on a great German post-punk album called Kreaturen der Nacht, and then we had
What's that mean?
That's Creatures of the Night.
Oh, well done. I didn't mention to say that.
And
I
then,
got German at home, and I can't say that.
Right. And then Trevor Jackson, who is obviously a legend as a producer and graphic artist and DJ, and there's a fantastic show now on NCS, but he's his knowledge of industrial music is incredible, and did a couple of albums called Metal Dance for us, which were really, really well received at the time, and just masterclasses in how to compile that kind of music. And so it was real, industrial music, new beat, machine music from the 70s and 80s, and it was just two fantastic collections. And honestly, they were just, you think you know your music a bit, and then you hear a compilation from someone who really knows their music, and you just think, okay, hands up,
that's it,
amateur hour.
I mean, okay, so you had that moment of, because one of my questions that I had was that I wanted to ask, if it's that moment of listening to something and go like, wow, this blow my mind, and as you say, like receiving that compilation and hearing somebody else's digging, because I feel like you work with a lot of amazing people, anything from the DJ collectors to the musicians over the years, like very lucky.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I never underestimate luck, and hard work goes without saying, but it's amazing. It's amazing. Like every time I look at that list, I'm like, wow, Sun Rods, like so many things that pops right out of my iPad here. But let's listen to that. Let me remind me that name again.
Yes, this is Nitzer Ed, and this is on one of the Trevor Jackson compilations.
That's it. Okay, we're back. We're back. You know, we're gonna have like sample taste. You know when you put like and you go to a record shop and you don't have much time, and you do needle test. You know, yeah, good, no good, no good, yeah, good, no good. I feel like everybody that we're listening knows the label, know the music, know exactly what we're talking about. So we give the taste, but Sun Ra, I'm jumping like maybe like 5 years ahead, you know, with some other great releases that you had all the time. How that came along, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Sun Ra. So we, through friend Sue Bauman, I met Peter Dennett, who runs Art Yard Records, who was working a lot with the Sun Ra archives at the time when we started out there, and we just thought we'd partner up and start to release some projects through Strut. So that then led to us meeting the Sun Ra LLC, essentially the guardians of the estate, and actually sort of working on more projects over time. So we did a great compilation with Marshall Allen, who picked various highlights from the Sun Ra catalogue. I think the idea was really Sun Ra was always a bit of an enigma, and you look at his catalogue and you're just scared because it's like, yeah, it's like, you know, hundreds of albums and singles, and you're like, oh, where do I start here? You know, I mean, I'd heard bits and pieces and loved it, and you know, had some of the records, but I just thought there was a place to really have a nice platform for people to enjoy Sun Ra and have a you know, various different projects that sort of brought together, you know, different aspects of his work. So we did a great compilation with Marshall. Giles Peterson curated a lovely one as well.
That's good.
Yeah,
it's always a nice addition.
Definitely, yeah. And he was you know, so passionate about doing that project, and it was great to work with him. Obviously,
How was working with Giles?
Giles is great. I mean, you know, I just think we're very, very lucky to have Giles actually in this. Giles Peterson, I think he's just a magnet for so many people in the scene, and I think we take him for granted a little bit, to be honest. I think
really?
I really think so. I think he's just been there for a long time doing what he's doing, and he's just.
But he's always like so passionate. It's amazing. I mean, he didn't lose it. Which that's what for me is the magic. You know, when you still do it like it's your first time. You know, like you're still enjoying it. These moments, obviously, everybody, you know, wear and tear of the business, but. With him, you can always see it like he's really enjoyed every show that he does, the music that he selects. But I think, yeah, please.
Yeah, I was just, as you say, he's got the ear and you know, the hunger always for new music. You know, the amount of times I've heard artists saying that he's contacted them and supporting them, and you know, he's just does a lot of things behind the scenes as well. But he's just an incredible guy. I mean, really, really phenomenal what he's done in his career, I think. So
when you say he was helping creating the compilation, like he was helping selecting the tunes, how does that work? Like, yeah, I mean, it was at the time when, you know, the rights for Sun Ra's music were really all over the place for a while, and then a lawyer in New York managed to pull together a lot of the strands, and worked with Michael Anderson, who's got a huge archive of tapes, and managed to actually sort of pull everything together. And Giles, you know, we started working with Giles just as that had happened, and Giles really had carte blanche across the whole catalogue to pick the tracks that he wanted for a compilation. So it was like, you know, he was in the strawberry fields. He could really go to town on it, and it was, you know, it was a great thing. We went through many different iterations. You know, he had a long list of about 50, 60 tracks, and we were sort of whittling it down. It's always hard to narrow it down, no? Like, yeah. And then okay, it's those. It's like going back and forward. Let's have a listen. I think you chose for us "Love Is in the Outer Space." That's a tune.
Sunrise, love everlasting reaches out to a lover like me again. Sunrise and love everlasting. Sunrise, love in its splendor speaks to me in metaphysical harmony.
Okay, I'm getting stressed. No, I'm not. As always, I mean that's phenomenal. And it feels like you were working with a lot of either recreating albums, reissues, compilations, initiative tracks, like collaboration with different artists. And then I remember Electric Jalaba came out, and that's like a new project. Because they had it before they signed with you, no?
That's right. Yeah, they had a couple of albums, 2-3 albums, I think, before they signed to us. But it was a band I always loved them. I just thought they had something. I loved Simo up front, and the brothers, Ollie, Henry, the Keens, just had this amazing chemistry between them. Really, I think I loved the whole Gnawa meets electronic mixed fusion that they had. It was always something special. I think when I heard those original albums, I always loved it, and was always sort of had it on my list to work with them one day. And they're lovely people as well. It's just an absolute pleasure working with them. And the album they did there, El Hell the Feeling, was great. It's sadly Gnawa music's not the easiest sell, and it's like you sort of as a label you believe in the music, but to me that's you still also you back the music that you love, and it's that album is fantastic. It's just I think it'll always stand up as a good one.
It's nice. I mean, there was many other like new. I say new like with brackets, like new artists that you sign, or it's kind of like an off thing for you guys.
Yeah, we do. I think it's it has got harder, unfortunately, in the last couple of years. But we've always tried to do that.
It's really hard, like starting an artist from scratch. There's something I talk about it often with artists that contact us, like Battle Records and things like that. And I find that I don't think people even realize how much effort is, to build the profile, the name of an artist that just starting the process compared to, an established name. And because for me, it was always important, like not to give importance to numbers. It was always about the music. Like, if I really like the music and you send me an album and you tell me I would never gonna perform with it, and I really like it, I'm gonna release it. And it's not traditional approach of a label,
So when you've worked with your artists, do you try and work sort of long term with them, where you sign lots of different albums, or you?
No, I've signed them for one album at a time. Like it's like we always request like put us in the first priority if you have another one, but they don't have to. They're not obliged to do it with us. So it's. Give that option open, and I'm thinking of it as well. The reason I don't want to do it for a few albums is like, what if I don't like the guy? What if they don't like me? Then we got stuck with each other. Like it's a relationship. It's like taking the baby steps. Give it time, see how we work, and so far the chemistry is there and the relationship is growing, and it's pretty amazing. But yeah, I think it's not easy to sign a new act, no?
Yeah, I mean, usually you're spending that whole first album building up their profile and getting to the point where you've built up their fan base. So it's like you're putting an awful lot of work in for not much return to start with if you look at it purely on a business side. But as a label, I think there's a responsibility to support new talent as well, or support not necessarily new talent, but bands that deserve the spotlight. And we've always tried to have that as part of what we do, I think.
Nice, amazing. If you would have to give like an advice to like an artist that want to sign, and anything that you as a label have would like to give advice to, I don't want to say young generation, because I think people never stop to make music. You can get a demo from if you make music, you make music. You always want to sign, you want to release your music. But I think if we're musicians listening to us, like any advice that you would want to say? Guideline?
That's a really difficult one. I think it's probably the obvious thing of just putting in the hard graft before you get to the label, really. Doing what you can to build up your live profile. And, if you're good at socials, unfortunately, it's a good thing these days. you know, there's a fantastic drummer who's in my son's class at school, who's with a band Oreglo, who you know, and they've just worked very, very hard as a 4-piece UK jazz group, and they're like been doing the circuit and building up their profile, and you know, fantastic at TikTok, and you know, you can just see that their star is rising very, very quickly, and it's like,
really?
you know, it's so that work is immediately, you know, appealing to a label. You sort of think, okay, you know, that's already motoring, you know, you're sort of coming in on the journey rather than having to sort of generate everything from scratch.
Yeah, I guess it's a big thing. I mean, you know, if you get a band and they send you music and it's like you're 50-50 on the music, but the numbers on the social are really high, would you still release it? It's like, it's a guarantee some money. It's a tricky one.
Have you been tempted?
No.
Okay, right.
I would say unfortunate and fortunate at the same time, because I like discovering new artists. So I was always in that space of like most of the bands they contact us, either it's the first release or, you know, to just finish an album and things like that. But not necessarily the first time that they release music, but first time with that particular project. And I always find it like... it's easier. I can see that it's easier to work with an experienced artist, that you don't have to answer questions that are obvious for you and me if they're doing it for quite a while. I mean, you've been doing it for longer, but you know, sometimes when people just sign for the first time, they're total lost. Like they have no idea even what is a publishing, what is a master, what, you know, like the basic that today is like you know, that's how the whole business run. You know, I'm gonna play quickly Electric Juggler before we're gonna come back. Just before we finish, we got about 10 minutes left. Oh, I'm so sad. You know, I'm happy that those guys grabbed Simo, because it's not easy to grab him and be like, sit down, let's do an album. But they did, and every time I saw him and I was speaking with him about this band, you know, before the album came out, I was like, I like those guys, man. They're always like, come, Simo, let's record, you know, they're very driven to do it. And it's amazing that you guys released it. You know, when I saw it coming out, I was like, oh, this is really exciting, you know.
It was nice. There was just a nice side story with that one as well, is these funny things you get in the music industry. They got asked to do a track with the computer game The Sims.
Yeah.
And they said, you know, we'll feature this track on The Sims, but you've got to re-record the vocal in Simlish, in their own language. So I'm like, oh dear. I mean, Simo's just these beautiful words and spiritual and, you know, deep, and then you're sort of going to him and saying, sorry, can you re-record that track with the sort of Simlish kind of gibberish language? So he was like, after a bit of sort of, I'm not doing that, it was, you know, eventually persuaded them to go in, and they had to re-record the vocal in Simlish. So on the Simlish game, on the Sims game, you can hear that track. I think.
No way.
Yeah.
I could see him doing it as well, like, you know, like easily.
Right. I just felt a bit embarrassed asking him, really. But
it's a tricky one. That I never heard of, like the fact of, you know, usually they won't take the vocals down. But in English, I didn't even know that they had their own language, man. That's funny.
They send you a lyric sheet, and you have to follow the language. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. We are so close to the end of our show. It's 2 hours, went so fast, and I think I grabbed like half. So I'm gonna say it right here live. I'm definitely gonna get you back. But we're gonna do probably next time a bit of a B-side session. Get into your own personal collection. You know, see what you wanna bring on the table, because I'm very intrigued. You know, because there's like few compilations that came out last year. John, I lost my word.
John Sinclair.
That's it, John Sinclair. I should have known that. Come on, like, and that's the song that we're gonna play from that compilation. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's another one through Peter Dennett at Art Yard, who had the contact with John. John was a very important figure in Detroit in the all the way through the 60s onwards, and there wasn't a lot of jazz happening in the city at one point, so he set up a thing called the Detroit Artist Workshop, which was he'd set up jazz gigs around different pubs and bars and theatres, and have a whole circuit of great musicians that work together. And it was one of the central characters was Charles Moore. And it was a wonderful time. And there's this whole archive that had sat in a museum for all of these years of recordings that John had made, and Peter found out about it and put in 2-3 years of research to actually research all of these tapes and come up with this amazing compilation. So it was a real labour of love, and some incredible music came out of it. That's all of it unreleased, and it's that's the kind of project you love as a reissue label.
Exactly. All kind of. Oh my God, that's gold. I'm sure you have like an incredible lineup for 24. Anything you want to point out? Like, we don't have to. We can keep it under the radar as well. Like, okay, we keep it under the radar.
We're not. Yeah, there's certain things for Record Store Day we're not allowed to announce at the moment. But
Exactly.
our big project at the moment is Nubian Twist. We're working on their. They've got a single that's doing very well at the moment, and they have a really fantastic album. I have to say, it's like they just keep going from strength to strength as a band, and they're all great people, and it's a very, very exciting project. So that's announcing on. I think we've got that album coming early February, and then
Nice.
we're announcing it early February anyway. So looking forward to that.
So we're gonna finish. First of all, thank you so much for coming to the show. It was an absolute pleasure to speak with you and grab so much information about massive, important part of the history of things that I'm super inspired from. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
We're back in 2 weeks. Soho Radio B-side sessions. See you later.